Oh, hello everybody, good evening, I'm Cosmic Claire and welcome to another one of my video blogs. Well, I had an interesting experience today. I was asked if I would support a deputation by the Friends of Woodhouse Moor, which I used to live by and which I've known for nearly 40 years, to the full session of Leeds City Council, and this deputation was, I'll put a link to the Yorkshire Evening Post item about it, and this deputation was asking the council to reconsider their plans to have a part of the trolleybus route go on to a part of Woodhouse Moor known as Monument Moor, which has quite a historic past to it, well, basically requesting that the park is not damaged by the route of this, which is already being dubbed a Folly, the Trolleybus Folly. Now, I've spoken about this before, and it is something I feel quite strongly about. Now, a couple of people I know have actually expressed support for the Trolleybus Folly. Now, they are vastly outnumbered by the number of people I know who are against it for a wide variety of reasons. But it struck me that the reasons why these people might be supporting this trolleybus scheme are ways of looking at it, reasons for looking at it, which are excluding what I have previously said about the human aspect to this, and getting involved with a kind of communist style solution which imposes the solution on everybody. In fact, this is the other part of the title I've chosen for this Leeds Trolleybus Folly: Problem, Reaction, Solution. Now, some of you might have heard that before, and what this is often the case is that the powers that be, the powers behind the powers, the people who want to socially engineer society into a particular form that of their choosing, they either create a problem or they highlight a problem such that they provoke people to a reaction, and then by miraculous sleight of hand they produce the solution. Now, we might well have difficulty with traffic congestion passing through Headingley at rush hours on weekdays. So what does this amount to? A couple of hours in the morning, a couple of hours in the evening, when there is a traffic jam. Okay, well, this is a bit of a difficulty, but is the solution really an appropriate one? And is it one which serves the local people? Just going from the outskirts of Leeds, where it would start, near Lordswood or Holt Park, one of the first things it does is this trolleybus route would have electric cables and a route which would have priority across a major ring road roundabout, which would stop traffic in both directions for at least 30 seconds a time every time it goes through. it would then have priority over all traffic and buses, so the other traffic and buses either have to get out of the dedicated trolleybus route, or they're not allowed to even use it at all, in which case you've got a lot of unused space. Now, as the trolleybus would come down through Far Headingley, it would involve road widening along large wide green verge by St Chad's Church, where a community orchard has been planted, and along the widening, taking up the grass verge all the way down the Otley Road to the Shore Lane junction. Then the carnage really starts. Stone cottages would be removed to make way for the trolleybus route. And remember, the trolleybus route on pretty much all of it is accompanied by overhead pylons like lampposts with cabling from them. I'll get onto that later. Then it would go up Alma Road, having wiped the old Christian Science stone cottage building off the map on the corner of Alma Road. And then something which I find particularly distasteful is that the route of the trolleybus would then pass over the very spot, or very close to it, the very spot where the last victim, the 13th victim of the Yorkshire Ripper, in about 1980, I forget the date, I'm afraid, was murdered. The murder of Jacqueline Hill on what is a quiet grassed over area with trees. I mean, this is obviously the unfortunate reason why she was attacked, but because it was a quiet little space away from the main road, but only, you know, less than a minute away. And I kind of feel that leaving it as a small wooded green area is kind of respectful to the memory of her and what happened to her there. Certainly paving it over and pushing a road through with electric pylons over this most tragic spot in the history of Headingley, certainly that I know of, gives me a very bad feeling. And I think if people remembered what had happened there, then they might be less keen to know that thousands of people or hundreds of people every day would be passing over the Ripper's final murder spot. It's kind of creepy. And for somebody like me who's into metaphysics and otherworldly realities, this is something that will never go away, and it just needs to be left as a quiet little wooded grove of remembrance where her spirit can perhaps rest in peace. Then, leaving that behind, the what must presumably be a two-lane road, which is being put through behind the Arndale Centre, across the open green by the halls of residence. Then it would cut across Wood Lane, up through a gap that's been left behind some shops, across the Shire Oak Road, which is a kind of lovely, wonderful little kind of oldie-worldy street with big old houses that have been turned into flats and lovely mature gardens. And the old vicarage has a lovely large green lawn in front of it, which, that's it folks, straight through there between the old vicarage, the Victorian old vicarage, and the original Oak Pub, which is one of the oldest pubs in Leeds, and then further through over some green fields which have been purposely left undeveloped, and through 19th or 18th century stone wall, which is listed, and then on to Headingley Lane, the whole of Headingley Lane from Headingley Hill, where by the entrance to the Old Little Sisters of the Poor, would have to be widened, nearly half a mile or so of listed Victorian stone wall with several magnificent stone gates, and there's a couple of old listed buildings which are built into the wall, would have to all be moved. Then on down to Hyde Park Corner, where it is kind of hard to imagine that you could get trolleybuses through without well, one lot of houses has already been condemned, but that's one lot of shops on the south side by Victoria Road, and it's really kind of hard to imagine that they could get through the other side without taking down the row of shops opposite the Crescent. Obviously the Crescent at Hyde Park Corner is of sufficient architectural value that it would have to be preserved, but it's kind of hard to imagine that you could get trolleybuses through without widening that junction somehow or other. Further on down, we pass through the Monument Moor that was made the representation about today, and then you get to another pinch point. Another two of the oldest pubs in Leeds, the Eldon and the Packhorse, would have to be destroyed to allow it, because it's only little more than a kind of two-lane highway at that point. It's really hard to imagine. I haven't seen the plans yet for the further bit going down into Leeds past the university. It's just kind of hard to imagine how they're going to squeeze it in without seriously moving back the walls and the pavements on Woodhouse Lane opposite the Parkinson building, and I have no idea how they're planning to get it through the city centre. Obviously it has to go near the city station and city square, and it's just a kind of nightmare of logistics. And yet, even though MP Greg Mulholland visited Budapest, where they say that they've had this system for some years and they would gladly trade it in for electric rechargeable buses, which are now being developed. And hey, there's a company in Leeds which is developing electric buses which can be recharged over induction plates, which could be set in the road, so they would have no local emissions, and no need for environmental vandalism, and no need for imposing a solution on the people. It was very interesting talking to several of the councillors, because they, while we were in the what you might call hospitality suite outside the Leeds City Council chamber, before we were called in for the representative Doug McKinnon to speak at the council session, we got to speak to several of the local councillors, and while we were just kind of generally talking about different things, when I spoke to one of the councillors and I said that I felt that there was a fundamental wrong here in the way that this was being proposed to be forced on the people of North Leeds, basically as a solution from on high. Somebody was deciding that this was the right thing for us, and I thought it was very interesting the way that the councillors were trying to persuade us. But when I said to one of the councillors that it seemed to me that this was an ethical issue as much as anything else, I suddenly realised that there was a deathly silence. All of the group of us, there was about the deputation and I think 3 or 4 councillors, so there was perhaps 8 or possibly even 9 of us in that little group in the hospitality suite outside the council chamber. Suddenly, just for that brief 20 seconds when I started talking about ethics and how this was an unethical imposition on the local people, suddenly these councillors all went deathly quiet. And to me, that indicates that they recognised there was something going on there, and that it was a matter of some concern to them, even if only they were kind of thinking, well, how are we going to get around this? Whatever it was, they noticed it. And this is a subject I'm going to have to go into another evening. But what we have here is, I'm going to have to wind this up in a minute or two. But what we have here is actually a form of communism or stroke fascism. And you might say, but where are the jackboots? Where are the commissars? Well, Leeds City Council officers telling us that this is going to happen. Well, it might not be done at the point of a bayonet yet, but you can tell that these people want to impose this. They've identified the problem, they're trying to create a reaction to that problem, and they are trying to provide the solution. And we have to ask, who benefits? Who benefits from this? The few people who benefit from this, well, the contractors. We have to think about who is going to make money out of this. The contractors are going to make money out of this, or they haven't been chosen yet, or perhaps they have. Well, I mean, there's a system, isn't there? So it has to be. It's kind of like one of these, opening up to the private sector, but there's only one contender. It's kind of a bit fishy, that. And so you have to think, who benefits and who's going to pay the price. People of Leeds are going to pay the price both in money, because there's a lot of people who are not going to even see any possible benefit from it, and the local people aren't going to see benefit from it, because the local buses are going to be reduced to make way for this Leviathan to come through Headingley through the rush hours, and it will be kind of a bit of a white elephant at other times when bus services were perfectly adequate. So I'm sorry for my usual audience who kind of probably thinking, oh, this is a little bit too nitty-gritty, down to the earth kind of stuff. But this does fit in with all a kind of humanity, ethics and spirituality that I normally talk about. This is where the rubber meets the road, folks. This is where integrity meets deception. This is a scheme which is carefully designed to try and persuade people, but which nonetheless is one which will benefit the people implementing it, and will benefit the people who might possibly benefit the people who are going to pass through Headingley, but it will not benefit the people in Headingley. And to me, This is the absolute crunch. It does not have consent, and it does not cause benefit, or as the recently started calling it, it causes disbenefit. Wonderful bit of newspeak. But anyway, so this is about reclaiming our humanity, folks, and about standing up to a kind of communist imposition of somebody else's values. And there's too much of this going on in the world these days, so we have to stand up and say no. And if this involves rubbing up a few officials the wrong way, well, I'm terribly sorry, but we need to do it, folks. This is going on all over the world. It's happening in the Amazon. We can't just say, oh, well, I'll sign a petition to save the Amazon. We have to do something to save our own environment. And I think that if we save our own environment, then we're, actually doing more to save the world than thinking about saving something that's remote that we never know. We have to think about, and don't let people accuse you of being a NIMBY. Not in my backyard. Oh yes, you're so selfish. Well, if we don't look after our own backyards, if we don't look after our own communities, if we don't look after our own environment, then we are in no position to tell the Brazilian government or the Peruvian government or whoever it might be that they should or shouldn't do anything with their own environment, because they can say, well, look at you cut down all your forests, you sell off your beautiful land, and you destroy your architectural heritage. People would, in some parts of the world, would die to have the kind of architectural heritage that we have in Headingley. And yet these people, they want to destroy it for a mass transit system that will probably be obsolete before it's even completed, because of the technology is advancing so fast, and there needs to be a full public inquiry as to what would be truly the best form of public transport for Leeds. And I think possibly one positive outcome of this is that people might start looking the devil right in the eye and realising that if we are to truly have a system of transit in Leeds which would take the weight off the roads and last for centuries and be truly value for money, that can be looked back on and people can say those people in the early 21st century really bit the bullet, and they really got to grips with the issue, and they built an underground tube not only on the northwest southeast route, but a circular one and an east-west road and a northeast southwest one, and really get to grips with this and do it properly. And that's it. So this is as much about spiritual integrity and determination, folks, as any of my other videos. It's just that it's kind of thinly veiled underneath the rather dull and uninteresting subject of local transport. But that's what it is. They all come together. The material life and the spiritual, if they aren't in harmony, then both of them are meaningless. So I'll talk about that more another time, and I've gone way over my normal 20 minutes. But thank you for listening, folks. This is one which is really dear to my heart, and this is one which really matters. And so I'll say thank you for watching tonight, and I'll catch you again another time. In Lakesh. Have a part of the trolleybus route go on to a part of Woodhouse Moor known as Monument Moor, which has quite a historic past to it, well, basically requesting that the park is not damaged by the route of this, which is already being dubbed a Folly, the Trolleybus Folly. Now, I've spoken about this before, and it is something I feel quite strongly about. Now, a couple of people I know have actually expressed support for the communist style solution, which imposes the solution on everybody. In fact, this is the other part of the title I've chosen for this Leeds Trolleybus Folly: Problem, Reaction, Solution. Now, some of you might have heard that before, and what this is often the case is that the powers that be, the powers behind the powers, the people who want to socially engineer society into a particular form that of their choosing, they either create a problem or they highlight a problem such that they provoke people to a reaction, and then Trolleybus Folly. Now, they are vastly outnumbered by the number of people I know who are against it for a wide variety of reasons, but it struck me that the reasons why these people might be supporting this trolleybus scheme are ways of looking at it, reasons for looking at it, which are excluding what I have previously said about the human aspect to this, and getting involved with a kind of a miraculous sleight of hand. They produce the solution. Now, we might well have difficulty with traffic congestion passing through Headingley at rush hours on weekdays. So what does this amount to? A couple of hours in the morning, a couple of hours in the evening, when there is a traffic jam. Okay, well, this is a bit of a difficulty, but is the solution really an appropriate one? And is it one which serves the local people? Just going from the outskirts of Leeds, where it would start, near Lawnswood or Holt Park, one of the first things it does is this trolleybus route would have electric cables and a route which would have priority across. Oh, hello everybody. Good evening. I'm Cosmic Claire, and welcome to another one of my video blogs. Well, I had an interesting experience today. I was asked if I would support a deputation by the Friends of Woodhouse Moor, which I used to live by and which I've known for nearly 40 years, to the full session of Leeds City Council, and this deputation was, I'll put a link to the Yorkshire Evening Post item about it, and this deputation was asking the council to reconsider their plans to